Audio Jungle.
எல்லாம் வல்ல இறை பரம்பொருளை பிரார்த்தித்து யாழ்ப்பாண பல்கலைக்கழகத்தினுடைய தோற்றுவாயின் மூலகர்த்தாவாக இருந்து இந்த நிலத்தை நமக்காக்கி தன் பெருங்கனவை எமக்கூடாக எய்தி இரும்பூதெய்துகின்ற செர்வன் ராமநாதன், அவர்தம் துணைவியார் மதிப்புக்குரிய சீமாட்டி லீலாவதி ராமநாதன் நினைவு பேருரை 2026 பல்கலைக்கழக பட்டமளிப்பு விழாவை தொடர்ந்து நடைபெறுகின்ற ஒரு சம்பிரதாயபூர்வமான நிகழ்வாக இன்று நூலக கேட்போர் கூடத்தில் அரங்கேறுகிறது. இன்றைய நாள் இந்த நினைவு பேருரையினை ஆற்ற இருக்கின்ற செர்வன் ராமநாதன் நினைவு பேருரை ஆற்ற இருக்கின்ற தகைசால் பேராசிரியர் நடராஜா ஸ்ரீஸ்கந்தராஜா அவர்களும், இருக்கை பேராசிரியர் கீதாஞ்சலி சத்யதாஸ் அம்மையார் அவர்களும் துணைவேந்தர் சகிதமாகவும் கலைப்பீடாதிபதி சகிதமாக இங்கே வருகை தந்திருக்கிறார்கள். அவர்களை அன்போடு வரவேற்று இப்பொழுது மங்கள விளக்கேற்றல் இடம்பெற இருக்கின்றது. மங்கள விளக்கினை ஏற்றி வைப்பதற்காக நமது பல்கலைக்கழகத்தினுடைய மதிப்புக்குரிய துணைவேந்தர் பேராசிரியர் ஸ்ரீ சத்மராஜா ஐயா அவர்களை அன்பாக அழைக்கின்றோம். அவர்களை தொடர்ந்து மங்கள விளக்கேற்றுவதற்காக கலைப்பீடாதிபதி கலாநிதி சண்முகநாதன் ஐயா அவர்களை அன்பு கூர்ந்து அழைக்கின்றோம். அவர்களை தொடர்ந்து மங்கள விளக்கேற்றுவதற்காக இன்றைய நாள் இந்த நினைவு பேருரையினை ஆற்ற இருக்கின்ற பேராசிரியர் பெருமக்கள் பேராசிரியர் நடராஜா ஸ்ரீஸ்கந்தராஜா ஐயா அவர்களையும் பேராசிரியை கீதாஞ்சலி சத்யதாஸ் அம்மையார் அவர்களையும் அன்பு கூர்ந்து அழைக்கின்றோம். மங்கள விளக்கேற்றி வைத்த அனைவருக்கும் நன்றி சொல்லி ஒரு நிமிடம் எங்கள் சிரசுகளை தாழ்த்தி இந்த கணமமோடு இங்கே இருக்க முடியாத உயர் ஆத்மாக்களையும் எம்மை ஆசீர்வதிக்கின்ற அத்தனை ஆத்மாக்களுடைய ஆசியையும் பிரார்த்தித்து செர்வன் ராமநாதன் மற்றும் சீமாட்டி லீலாவதி ராமநாதன் நினைவுகளோடு ஒரு நிமிடம் அகவணக்கம் செலுத்துவோம். நிறைவு செய்து கொள்வோம். துணைவேந்தர் மற்றும் கலைப்பீடாதிபதி நினைவு பேருரை ஆற்றியிருக்கின்ற பேராசிரியர்கள் ஸ்ரீஸ்கந்தராஜா, பேராசிரியர் கீதாஞ்சலி சத்யதாஸ் ஆகியோரை அன்பாக அரங்குக்கு அழைக்கின்றோம். யாழ்ப்பாணத்தில் இலங்கையினுடைய வடக்கு பிராந்தியத்தில் ஒரு பல்கலைக்கழகம் ஸ்தாபிக்கப்பட வேண்டும் என்கின்ற பெருங்கனவோடு 1921 ஆண்டுகளிலே பரமேஸ்வரா கல்லூரியை ஸ்தாபித்து அது பின்னர் 74 வளாகமாகி 78 பல்கலைக்கழகமாக நிமிர்ந்த பொழுது அந்த பெருங்கனவை உருவாக்கி தந்த செர்வன் ராமநாதனும் அவருடைய கனவுகள் பலவற்றுக்கு செயல் வடிவம் கொடுத்த அவருடைய துணைவியார் சீமாட்டி லீலாவதி ராமநாதன் அவர்களுடைய நினைவுகளை தாங்கிய பேருரை இப்பொழுது இந்த அரங்கத்திலே நினைவு பேருரையாளர்களையும் வருகை தந்துரையும் வரவேற்றும் நினைவு பேருரையாளர்களை அறிமுகம் செய்து வைத்து உரையாற்றுவதற்காகவும் துணைவேந்தர் அவர்களை அன்பாக அழைக்கின்றோம்.
திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். ஆலம் தானுகந்து அமுது செய்தானை ஆதியை அமரத்தொழு தேத்தும் சீலந்தான் பெரிதுமுடையானே சிந்திப்பவரம் சிந்தையுள்ளானே ஏலவார் குழலால் உமன் அங்கே என்றும் ஏற்றி வழிபட பெற்ற காலகாலனை கம்பனம்மானை காணக்கண் அடியான் பெற்றவார். So time is the greatest influence of the nature and the human beings. Sir Pon Ramanathan was separated from the earthly life in 1924, so more than 90 years lapsed, but his legacy lasts. So memorial lectures are a way of keep the memory of the departed life and acknowledge the significant contribution to society, particularly in their respective fields. As such, the University of Jaffna annually conducts memorial lecture to honor the legacies of distinguished individuals, often academics or public figures. Sir Ponnambalam Ramanathan Memorial Lecture along with the Lady Leelawathi Ramanathan Memorial is a cherished annual event and very well established tradition of our university. So this memorial lecture series is a prestigious event organized annually by our university, aligned with the annual general convocation to commemorate the legacy of the Sir Pon Ramanathan, who was a leading Hindu educationist, great scholar, nationally acclaimed statesman and philanthropist. His immense contribution to education were the establishment of two schools, the Ramanathan College of Girls, established in Mardanamalam, Chunnagam in 1913, and the Parameshwara College for Boys 8 years later, 1921. The Parameshwara College was acquired to become the main premises of the University of Jaffna. The University of Jaffna was inaugurated in 1974, and the Golden Jubilee celebration of a Shrine of Knowledge was celebrated throughout the years 2004 and 2024 and 2025 with all spheres of events. In this respect, Sir Ponnambalam Ramanathan Memorial Lecture 2026 becomes highly significant. This Ramanathan Memorial Lecture is funded by the Endowment Institute by the Board of Directors of Ramanathan College in 1980. The memory of Sir Ponnambalam Ramanathan is very close and dear to us. Every premises and building which form the nucleus of our mother university are closely associated with him. We are indeed thankful to those who institute the endowment for giving us the opportunity to cherish Sir Ponnambalam Ramanathan memory upon his service, establishing educational centers in this region. This year, the memorial lecture of Ponnambalam Ramanathan is being delivered by Professor Emeritus Nadaraja Sri Skandaraja, Chair Professor in Environmental Communication at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences in Uppsala. At present, he is a Professor Emeritus in Sweden at the Department of Urban and Rural Development, Faculty of Natural Resources and Agriculture. Nadaraja Sri Skandaraja held a various positions in the Swedish University. He is at present Professor Emeritus. Sri Skandaraja sir held university position previously in Sri Lanka, Australia, Papua New Guinea and Denmark, and worked on projects in a number of countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America and Europe. Education as a veterinarian, University of Ceylon in 1972, Sri Skandaraja obtained a PhD in nutrition of farm animals as a holder of F.H. Loxton Fellowship in Veterinary Sciences at the University of Sydney in 1982. Having acknowledged the limits of the reductionist rationality in his sciences, Sri Skandaraja embraced systems thinking and practice at the University of Western Sydney, Australia, 1986 to 2000. Taking a system approach to understanding complex issues at the nature-society interface and applying communicative and change-oriented process to enable social learning and transformation have characterized his scholarly practice. Working across and beyond discipline, his pedagogy is guided by the Furnerian unity between theory and practices as a praxis. Today, he works with young enthusiasts and change makers in northern Sri Lanka, addressing groundwater security, food safety, and sovereignty, and novel approaches to environmental governance and education, all within an action research paradigm. Water security through participatory action research in the northern province of Sri Lanka has been Professor Sri Skandaraja's platform at the University of Jaffna since 2020, while at the University of Vavuniya, he supports multi-phase of the development of environmental science studies. Both universities have recently conferred the title of adjunct professor to Nadaraja Sri Skandaraja. Today, we are all glad to welcome him to deliver the address titled The Engaged University, Mussing on Research, Dialogue and Water Security. We welcome you, sir.
பேராசிரியர் ஸ்ரீஸ்கந்தராஜா அவர்களுக்கு இப்பொழுது துணைவேந்தர் அவர்கள் மாலை அணிவித்து கௌரவிப்பார்கள்.
வேறு தலைக்கு செய்யப்பட்டதை சொருகிறது கொஞ்சம் கடினம். So with your permission, I'll take it down. Thank you for the introductory words. அரங்கம் நிறைய வந்திருக்கும் சகாக்கள் நண்பர்கள் எல்லோருக்கும் என்னுடைய பணிவான வணக்கம். Vice Chancellor, colleagues, students, guests of the university and friends, thank you for inviting me to deliver this year's Sir Ponnambalam Ramanathan Memorial Lecture. It's a privilege to honor a towering Tamil figure and to do so here in Jaffna, a place that has shaped my own scholarly sensibilities and my sense of responsibility to the community. My beginnings in the village of Kairanagar, a short 20 kilometers northwest of Jaffna, offered me a Kurukulam-style education for the first 7 years of schooling at the experimental Gandhian institution founded by my father's classmate and teacher at Jaffna College, Mr. Ponnuthurei Navaratnam. Nationalization of schools in 1958 ended that experiment. I joined mainstream schools to complete my high schooling in the science stream, followed by a 4-year degree in veterinary science at the University of Ceylon, Peradeniya. We graduated in 1972, the year the Dominion of Ceylon became the Republic of Sri Lanka. The University of Ceylon was generous enough to offer its graduates of that year the option to choose to get their degree either from the University of Ceylon or from the brand new University of Sri Lanka. As far as I recall, all colleagues of mine from all different language backgrounds chose the old colonial name. Perhaps it was too soon to begin decolonizing. It didn't stop there because the University of Ceylon in Peradeniya was a hotbed of leftist radicalism at the time. So the year we graduated, the student group was capable of removing the graduation ceremony from the calendar of our university. So, in fact, I never truly graduated from my university. Neither did I manage to get my PhD from the University of Sydney, because the immigration rules of Australia at the time was that international students must leave the country the day after they completed their study. Today, there don't seem to be very harsh rules, but they were. So my wife and I submitted our PhDs one afternoon, and we were on a plane to Papua New Guinea the next morning. So what started as an assistant lectureship at the Faculty of Agriculture, soon after I completed my degree, enabled me, with guidance from one of my early mentors, Professor Reggie Apathure, who was the Dean of Agriculture at the time, to build a tour of duty and an opportunistic career path which extended for a half a century and at half a dozen different universities along the way to be finally here today. Today I want to reflect on what it means for a university to be engaged, not merely excellent in academic terms, but deeply embedded in the lives, struggles, and aspirations of the communities around it. I want to pose the question to you all. Are we an engaged university? Is the University of Jaffna an engaged university? I also want to explore how research can become a form of public dialogue, how dialogue can become a form of inquiry, and how inquiry can become a form of action. And I will take one urgent example, water security in the northern province, to show what becomes possible when a university sees itself not as a passive observer, but as an active co-creator of change with its people. Vice Chancellor, with your permission, sir, I wish to deviate from my published speech in order to share a few thoughts in my beloved Tamil language, which after all made me who I am. யாழ்ப்பாண பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் வருடாந்த பட்டமளிப்பு விழாவினை தொடர்ந்து மதிப்புக்குரிய சர் பொன்னம்பலம் ராமநாதன் நினைவு பேருரை மற்றும் சீமாட்டி லீலாவதி ராமநாதன் நினைவு பேருரை ஆகிய இரு நிகழ்வுகள் ஊடாக அன்னார் இருவரையும் அவர்களது அளப்பரிய சேவையையும் எடுத்து பேசி கௌரவத்துடன் ஆண்டுதோறும் நினைவு கூறும் இந்த விழாவிற்கு வந்துள்ள உங்கள் அனைவரையும் நல்ல தமிழ் மாண்புடனும் அன்புடனும் வணங்கி வரவேற்றுக் கொள்கிறேன். இந்நிகழ்வு தொடரினை வலுவெதுவுமின்றி வருடா வருடம் பெருமையுடன் நடாத்தி வரும் யாழ் பல்கலைக்கழகம் போற்றுதற்குரியது. இப்பெருநிகழ்வில் உரை வழங்கும் தகுதியை எனக்கு, நான் என்னை ஒரு அகடமிக் நோமேட் என்று சொல்பவன், அறிவு புலங்களிடையே அலையும் ஒரு நாடோடி, என்னையும் இந்த தகுதியை எனக்கு வழங்கலாம் என துணிவுடன் என் பெயரை முன்மொழிந்த கலைப்பீடத்தையும் என் ஆய்வு பணிகளை இப்பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் சமூகத்தில் கடந்த 6-7 ஆண்டுகளாக முன்னெடுக்க வழி சமைத்த துணைவேந்தர் பேராசிரியர் ஸ்ரீ சற்குணராஜா அவர்களையும் நன்றி உணர்வோடு வணங்கிக் கொள்கிறேன். இலங்கையின் தவப்புதல்வர்களில் ஒருவர் சர் பொன் ராமநாதன் என்பதில் என்றும் எவருக்கும் கருத்து வேறுபாடு இல்லை. ஏறத்தாழ அரை நூற்றாண்டு காலமாக இலங்கை அரசியல் வானில் ஈடு இணையற்று பிரகாசித்த ராமநாதன் அவர்கள் இவ்வுலவிலே தம் புகழ் நிறுவிச் சென்ற பெரும் மக்களுள் ஒருவர் என்பதை ஊரும் உலகமும் ஒப்புக்கொண்டுள்ளன. இது பேராசிரியர் கைலாசபதி அவர்களது கூற்று. ராமநாதன் வாய்ச்சொல் வீரர் அல்லர். அவரது செயல் வீரத்திற்கு எடுத்துக்காட்டுகளே ராமநாதன் மகளிர் கல்லூரியும் பரமேஸ்வரா கல்லூரியும் ஆகும். இது அறிஞர் சொக்கன் சொல்லி சென்றது. செயல் வீரர் ராமநாதன், அவரது தம்பியார் அருணாச்சலம் ஆகியோரது பேர் இலட்சியங்களின் பேறுகளில் தலை சிறந்ததான இவ்யாழ்ப்பாண பல்கலைக்கழகத்தில் நான் இன்று பேச முன்வந்துள்ள தலைப்பும் இலட்சியங்களை கனவு காண்பதோடு மட்டும் நின்றுவிடாது, தெளிந்த சிந்தனைகளையும் அவற்றை திடமாக செயலாக்குவதையும், தாட்ஸ் அண்ட் ஆக்ஷன், தியரி அண்ட் பிராக்டிஸ் இரண்டையும் ஒரே தளத்தில் ஒரே நேரத்தில், ஏன் ஒவ்வொரு கணமும் கூட எவ்வாறு நிகழ்த்தலாம், அதன் மூலம் எவ்வாறு மாற்றத்தை முன்னேற்றத்தை ஏற்படுத்தலாம் என்பதையும் அடிப்படையாக கொண்ட செயல்வழி ஆய்வு, ஆக்ஷன் ரிசர்ச் நடைமுறை அனுபவம் பெற்றியது. வடமாகாணத்தின் நீர்வளம் மேலும் சிதைவடையாத ஒரு நெடுங்கால நீர் பாதுகாப்பு இலட்சியத்தை நோக்கிய பஸ்பார் என்ற திட்டத்தை 12 இப்பல்கலைக்கழக ஆய்வாளர்கள், 6 பீடங்கள், 8 துறைகளை சார்ந்தோர் ஒன்று சேர்ந்து சமூக மருத்துவத்துறையின் முன்னெடுப்பாக கையில் எடுத்து எஹெட் நிதியம் மூலம் கிடைத்த 3 ஆண்டு முயற்சியினை மெத்தடாலஜிக்கல் கைடன்ஸ் முறைசாரியல் வழிகாட்டி வழிப்போக்கனாக வந்த என்னிடம் தந்து இன்று 2ஆம் கட்ட மேலும் ஒரு 3 ஆண்டுகளில் நடத்திய அனுபவங்கள் தான் என்று இங்கு பேசுபொருளாகிறது. கட்டமைப்புகளிடையே இன்ஸ்டிடியூஷன்ஸ் இடையே காலனித்துவ கால சிந்தனைகளின் வழிவந்த கட்டமைப்புகளிடையே சிக்குண்ட இயற்கை வளங்களில் மானுட சமூக வாழ்வியல் தேவைகளையும் அதே ரேஷனாலிட்டி அதே சிந்தனை வழியூடாக தொடர்வதால் ஏற்படும் பற்றாக்குறைகள் இழப்புக்களை முன்வைத்து கடந்த 3 தசாப்தங்களில் உலகளாவிய வகையில் மக்கள் ஈடுபாட்டுடன் திட்டமிடல் அபிவிருத்தியை நோக்கிய முயற்சிகளின் பெறுபேறுகளை பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் வகிபாகத்தை இங்கு உரைக்க இருக்கிறேன். ஆங்கிலத்தில் இந்த உரை இருப்பதை பொறுத்தருள்வீர். தமிழாக்கத்தை விரைவில் பதிவிடுவோம். எமது செயற்திட்டம் இன்னும் 6 ஆண்டுகள் செல்லலாம். ஆர்வமுள்ளோர், புதியவர்கள், பட்டப்படிப்பு முடித்தோர், பட்டத்துக்கான ஆய்வு தலைப்பு தேடுவோர் அனைவரையும் வரவேற்கிறேன். Back to the story. His story, the history. A quick reflection on the history. If we are to imagine the engaged university of the future, let us honor those who first imagined a university for this island in the first place. Agitation for higher education, especially for a university attuned to the realities of Ceylon, began by the mid-19th century, gathered momentum by the early 20th, and led to the Ceylon University Association of 1906, spearheaded by Sir James Peris, Sir Marcus Fernando, and of course Ramanathan's own brother, Sir Ponnambalam Arunachalam. Their advocacy pressed the government to move beyond external examinations, which were the way in which degrees were granted, to establish institutions responsive to local needs. Writing in 1906, Sir Ponnambalam Arunachalam captured the heart of the matter. Arguing for a local university, he said, "At the bottom of the movement in favor of the Ceylon University is the strong and widespread feeling that holding of examinations is the least important function of a university. That Cambridge, London, and other universities, on which we have hitherto relied for our arts and science examinations, restrict their activity, so far as we are concerned, to this function, and this too under conditions which make a degree inaccessible to the majority of our youth. That these universities know nothing and care nothing about our needs and conditions at the time, and that no education can be fruitful of good which ignores the needs of the people." More than a century later, Arunachalam's words sound like a manifesto for an engaged university. Education must be rooted in context, responsive to needs, today's needs, and co-created with society, not confined to the mere certification of knowledge. The 20th century model of the university was often linear. Students in, knowledge transfer, graduates out. Research exported as reports, articles, or consultancies. In a world of climate risk, social fragility, and technological disruption, that model is insufficient in my view. Universities must be porous, துளைகள் இருக்க வேண்டும், open to knowledge from communities, so there is a two-way flow. Dialogic, engaging differences productively, and co-creative platforms for solving problems together. These principles resonate with the fields I have spent much of my career nurturing: systems thinking, participatory action research, and environmental communication. Together, they allow us to act meaningfully in complex contexts rather than simply describe them. With that foundation, let me explore how this vision animates our present: systems thinking, participatory action research, and a concrete case, water security, where the University of Jaffna has begun to live out that ideal. And this project that I am narrating some details of is housed at the Department of Community Medicine in the Faculty of Medicine. What is systems thinking? Seeing patterns, not the parts alone. Most public challenges today, including the future of our groundwater in this province, are complex adaptive systems. Causes and effects interweave, feedback loops amplify, and interventions in one place produce unintended consequences elsewhere. Systems thinking asks us to look for relationships and patterns, to examine our own mental models, and to recognize that we are part of the system we seek to influence. We are not separate from the system to stand back and examine. Water security is quintessentially such a system. Hydrology intertwined with agriculture, settlement, governance, beliefs, markets. If we respond the usual linear way, we create new problems along the way. If we learn systemically, holistically, we create capacity for adaptive, collective stewardship. I move on to say something about participatory action research, which in my view is knowledge as civic practice. If systems thinking helps us see, action research helps us to act. Traditional research, which many of us conduct, asks what is happening and why. Participatory action research asks what might we do together from that knowledge that we obtain by seeing it. So PAR rests on the conviction that people living with a problem hold vital knowledge about it. The local citizens and villagers, farmers and community members, businessmen, politicians, everyone has a perspective, view, understanding, traditional knowledge about what's going on. Therefore, dialogue, in my view, is not an add-on. It is the method. Researchers become facilitators, communities become co-researchers, engineers become listeners. Data gathering, reflection, and action proceed iteratively, building legitimacy, trust, and ownership. I've seen in Sri Lanka, and my journeys abroad, to Bolivia in the west and to Vietnam in the east, co-inquiry always yields contextual, durable, and just solutions. It also builds the competencies universities today so badly need: facilitation, listening across differences, and the ability to navigate the science-society interface. My time at the University of Western Sydney in the 90s was marked very much by the influential work of Robert Chambers, who was at the University of Sussex in the UK, in the rural development field. Mounting a serious criticism of the conventional top-down technocratic interventions in developing country contexts, Chambers ushered in the concept of participation as an essential element of people-centered development. Participation here truly brings the question down to the public, makkal. Whose realities count? Putting the last first were some of the titles under which he offered his critique. He's still alive at age 93 and kicking in the UK. So action research, therefore, for me was a natural standpoint to take when choosing to intervene in the affairs of rural communities, whether it was in Kilinochchi or in Kilimanjaro. I was armed with a systemic awareness, a desire to contribute to new knowledge, and I made a commitment to improving their situation as an outcome of my stepping in. Otherwise, I have no right to be there. So I tried out this method in 1991 in the Papuan highlands of Papua New Guinea, in a very remote village, 4 days walking from the main part of the country, 15 minutes flying in a very risky single-engine aircraft. So after doing my fieldwork and 4 such flights, I reconsidered my pathway, but we did sufficient intervention steps to bring about a redefinition of their problem. Academics, on the whole, defend the concept of a university devoted to theoretical activities, while politicians and the wider society keep arguing that the university should take up more practical concerns. So, theory on the one hand, and the aspects of the practical lived world. John Dewey, the classical pragmatist philosopher, was against a sharp division between theory and practice all along. Much has been written about this matter. It still plagues institutions, universities, designers, planners. The university here in Thinnaveli must be the home of knowledge, dominantly theoretical knowledge, and the technical college down the road in Kokuville was where you learned practice. I'm generalizing, probably pushing it a bit too far, but I want to make this point. I'm quoting from the work of a recent analyst, yet again, showing Goetze 5 years ago, showed how we can move beyond the debate between theoretical and practical concepts of the university while maintaining a place for pure and applied research, liberal and vocational education, social impact through both economic applications and criticism aimed at promoting social justice. I adopted the word praxis, which to me is the notion of theory linked to practice as a dialectic. One informs the other. Theory informs how we practice, what we practice, and the practice refines a better understanding of the theory. So they are coupled permanently in my work. I did that, which took me to Hawkesbury Agricultural College, which was a small provincial agricultural college where we made a radical rethink of agricultural education. It later became a university, but in the process I ended up in that community for 14 years, had myself seriously transformed as an educator, researcher, communicator, and then I was looking for greener pastures in the Scandinavian set of countries, which has then led to another 12 years of formal employment in the Swedish National Agricultural University. Now I will come to water security in the northern province and my call for engagement. The question of water, and indeed the impending water crisis in the northern province that we are talking about, it came my way when I was visiting here in 2019. I made a visit to see Dr. Surendra Kumaran at the Faculty of Medicine to talk about school education, which I had some interest in. And here I am many years later, still talking about water. We've made some impressions somewhere along the way, but this is an ongoing long-term journey. Can I see the photos, please? I have a few photographs just to give you an impression of who we work with, in what context, in what areas of the landscape in the north. How's the time? Enlargement. Whatever. One of the younger water professionals in our network is Professor Mohandas. You are young. And is actively participating in some of our networking activities. Okay. We in the northern province hold no perennial rivers. This is the first claim that all science articles begin from, talking about what we do not have. I would like to ask the question, what do we actually have? Why did our ancestors got stuck here? How did they figure out a way of making a living, a tradition, a civilization without a perennial river and without any mountains to speak of? I will leave that question open, but not seeing that as a handicap. These ancestors of ours built an existence around our scarce and annually replenished groundwater for drinking and stored surface water in tanks for farming, with seasonal rainfall and a porous limestone geology. Water security, which was already framed as a holistic framework for this complex matter, is no longer just technical. It is also social and institutional. In view of the complex nature of this situation in the northern province, unique to the north only, not seen in any of the other 8 provinces, the critical need is for more responsible action by all actors. Business as usual did not seem an option for ensuring water security. So this project took as its point of departure the failure of existing institutional and social structures and sought to do 3 things. Reconstruct a more informed citizenry through filling the knowledge gaps. 2, create deliberative space for conversation, space for dialogue, for participatory planning and decision making for the creation of water security options, and not wait for the highest office in Colombo to bring a solution, or the ones who want to he was used to drinking filtered seawater to bring us water in a pipe. What have we had? What are we going to do with what we have, which is the basic groundwater source? And therefore, the third leg we stand on is encouraging citizen awareness at all levels through citizen-driven measurements, quantification, and experimentation. So the project, which is at the time of framing the project, we brought together three concepts. Socio-hydrology, which implies co-evolution of water and society. And here I recognize the work of Professor Murugesu Sivapalan in the United States, who has been a guest of this university and now an active participant in the work that we do. And he is respected around the world for pioneering this rethinking of hydrology as socio-hydrology, where the models and calculations would take into account people's values, opinions, and aspirations. Secondly, environmental communication, which has been my platform the last 18 years, which is to say how we talk about water will shape what we can do about it. So in a community that has forgotten to talk to each other, who's hesitating to have a conversation, talking about water is not going to naturally happen. We have to force it because we are divided by professions, we are divided by hierarchies, and we are divided by institutional walls. So on a critical existential matter like our water, we need to, that's the third point that I bring to the table, which is constructing dialogue spaces, where multiple actors learn together and co-generate context-specific knowledge. It critiques fragmented, top-down water management and advocates a more holistic, transdisciplinary, and multi-stakeholder governance, precisely the ethos of an engaged university. So we have spent substantial amount of time taking one case study, which is the island of Karinagar, because it's a modest-sized island, manageable number of communities. They have always lived on the edge of salinity, but they have also survived without emptying the land because we have run out of water. And this work, done primarily by one of our first MPhil candidates, and she was here last week to receive a MPhil degree for this work on Karinagar, and she's returned to the US where she is currently a PhD student. So this island with 11,000 residents today depends, like always, on groundwater, plus a substantial volume of water being tanked in from the mainland, from Panditharpu, Chunaham, and Urumbarai. I won't go through the next page, and in the text I would like you to take home and read it. But what we discovered from this intense monitoring work involving the public, the well owners in the process, has led to a sufficient understanding of the hydrogeology of this particular island, transferable to other islands, but it has also given us confidence to work with the local authorities, the district secretariat, the village level Grama Sevaka communities to utilize this information to come again back from the bottom towards a governance model which would be collectively owned by the people and they would be comfortable with it delivery. So just as important as the data is how the data was produced. Well owners were trained to measure levels and salinity. Researchers and officials were discussing their findings. We began the big scaffolding for a Northern Water Dialogue Forum. And this, to me, is the engaged university in practice, doing research with people, not on them, not for them. So what were the lessons? And I shall draw 5 lessons from the work in Karanagar predominantly, but also from other areas that we have intervened. Institutional courage, I labeled the first one. Openness to knowledge from outside the academy, outside the professions, from farmers, fisherfolk, youth, is not a concession, it's a strategic necessity for relevance. Second lesson, new skill sets. Facilitation, conflict transformation, storytelling with data, and boundary spanning as vital disciplinary expertise. New structures. We need living labs, community observatories, policy dialogue forums, which are very common in so many parts of the world, in the global north and in the south. Transdisciplinary curricula, which integrate science and civic practice, and that's the task of the university. Student formations. Students who co-inquire with communities develop ethical sensibilities, empathy, and confidence to act, capacities that lecturers alone cannot deliver in the classroom. And finally, democratic value. Dialogue-led inquiry builds trust and legitimacy, both essential for navigating contested resources like water, land, and fisheries. I have not touched on land, fisheries, wildlife, forestry, but they are just as importantly under threat, under weak management structures, very poor public engagement. So I come to the close. The University of Jaffna's opportunity to go from just a place to one which is the custodian of the future, stewardship as it is referred to. The University of Jaffna is uniquely positioned geographically, historically, and socially as it enters its second semi-centennial to become a leader in engaged scholarship. In a region recovering from conflict and facing climate volatility, the university can serve as a knowledge hub for social ecological understanding of the northern province as a landscape, not just land for development, land for building a factory, or land for fancy hotels, but a landscape with a heritage, a tradition, and a history of a people having lived here for very long. The university can be a convener of dialogue among communities, government agencies, and researchers. An innovation platform for water governance, ecological agriculture, and climate adaptation. And here I have to confess that whatever that we have been able to achieve through the dialogue forum across many government agencies and community has been enabled by the fact that we were from the University of Jaffna. That's the one that opened the door to us wherever we went. We have not been turned down anywhere. They may have been slow to respond, hesitant to come, but there are some of my team members here, they are persistent on the telephone and make them turn up. Turning up is the first step to many things. And lastly, University of Jaffna can be a generator of hope, modeling how evidence and participation can shape a fair future for all people, all citizens. What does this mean in very concrete terms. I'm suggesting a water security living lab connecting hydrologists, engineers, social scientists, public health experts, and communities to co-design recharge strategies, well-used guidelines, and local monitoring network. A home for this, not just as a project, but as a long-term institutional form. Secondly, embedding participatory action research methods into undergraduate and postgraduate programs, not teach it as just another methodology to do it for your thesis work, but something that will transform you and make your career as meaningful as it had been for me. Supporting village-managed aquifer recharge and salt intrusion early warning systems. And this, there are wonderful examples from India, and we are connected to some of that work as far north as Gujarat and Punjab, where they have truly run out of water. But they are figuring out that monsoonal landscape can still, will deliver sufficient rainfall to carry on a life. Perhaps just carry on what we have had, not carry on what we wish to have. That's a separate matter. And then finally, strengthen the Northern Water Dialogue Forum, which you, Vice Chancellor, came and inaugurated in November 22, and it's still carrying on. Some members of it are here. As a durable governance arena, linking community stewardship with policy. And this is how a university becomes embedded in its place and moves from being a factory of degrees to a steward of futures. Kalathin Kavalargalaga. I will now return to Arunachalam and to the purpose of a university. Allow me to close where we began, with the Ponnambalam brothers and their early agitation for a Ceylon university. Their campaign succeeded stepwise. First, a university college affiliated to London in 1921, which is later the Colombo campus of University of Ceylon. A fully fledged University of Ceylon in 1942, from which I graduated 30 years later. And now, over 8 decades since that time, the expansion of a national higher education system with 17 institutions, to my knowledge. Correct? But their deeper argument, the Ponnambalam brothers' deeper argument, was not merely for local degrees, because they faulted the British for giving us degrees which did not count what the local needs were. They were just certificates. It was for an institution that knows and cares about our needs and our conditions, for an education that cannot be fruitful of good if it ignores the locality. That, I believe, is the challenge before us now. When a well owner in Karanagar learns to read salinity meter and interpret rainfall recharge curves, when a village volunteer detects an early pattern of salination in his village corner, when a local authority collaborates with citizens to regulate pumping near public wells, when students that are present here as well, who will learn to facilitate dialogue along with learning hydrology. In all these moments, the university remembers why it exists. It exists not to hold examination, but to cultivate capacities and build a competent society. Not to export expertise, but co-create knowledge that is useful, legitimate, and just. Arivudayar, Seeludayar. This is my manufactured half a Tirukural from Arivudayar, Ellamudayar Tirukural, which I say Arivudayar, Seeludayar. Those that truly learn are those who act. That's my synthesis. This Ponnambalam Ramanathan Memorial Lecture is a call to reconnect our universities to our communities, which I have elaborated a little too long, little too loud, little too direct, but that's I meant it. To honor the historical vision of a university that belongs to its place. If we take Ponnambalam Arunachalam's words seriously, the holding, examination and certification is the least important function of a university. Yes, we must have them. We must get them out. But that should not occupy us all the time. Our task is clear. Become the engaged, embedded institution our predecessors imagined, one that knows and cares about the conditions of this land and that co-creates change with the community that call this place their home. நன்றி, எல்லோருக்கும் வணக்கம்.
பேராசிரியர் நடராஜா ஸ்ரீஸ்கந்தராஜா அவர்கள் மிக அருமையான ஒரு உரையினை பல்நோக்கு நிலையில் நின்று நமது வடக்கு மாகாணத்தினுடைய நீர்வள பாதுகாப்பு தொடர்பாக பேசினார். அவர் சொல்கிற பொழுது மிக கனதியான செய்திகள் நம் காதுகளுக்கு வந்து சேர்ந்தன. மகாகவி உருத்திரமூர்த்தியினுடைய கவிதைகள் கூட நினைவுக்கு வந்து போனன. யாழ்ப்பாணத்தை பற்றி சொல்கிற பொழுது இங்கே ஆறு இல்லை, ஆறு நடந்து திரிந்து வயல்கள் அடைந்து கதிர்கள் விளைந்திட வானேறி உயர்ந்த மலை இல்லை எனும் ஒரு குறை சொல்வதுண்டு. இது ஒரு கவிதை. இன்னொரு கவிதை சொல்வார், காலமலையின்றி அப்பன்றி காலமலை காணா மண்ணில் சப்பாத்தி முள்ளும் சரியாய் விளையாது, ஏறாது காலை இழுக்காது, எனினும் பாறை பிளந்து பயிர் விளைவிப்பான் என் ஆழத்து நீருக்கு அகழ்வான் என்கின்ற அந்த வார்த்தைகளை என்னுடைய ஓட்ட, அதாவது நீர் பாதுகாப்பு தொடர்பாக ஒரு விழிப்பை ஏற்படுத்திய துறைக்கு நன்றி சொல்லி அடுத்த உரைக்கு செல்ல இருக்கின்றோம். அடுத்த உரையாளர் யாழ்ப்பாண பல்கலைக்கழக மருத்துவபீடத்தினுடைய சிறுவர் நோய் பிரிவினுடைய இருக்கை பேராசி திருமதி கீதாஞ்சலி சத்யதாஸ் அம்மையார் அவர்களை இப்பொழுது நமது துணைவேந்தர் அவர்கள் அறிமுகம் செய்து வைக்க, அதனைத் தொடர்ந்து எங்களுடைய இந்து கற்கைகள் பீடத்தைச் சேர்ந்த பேராசி திருமதி பாபநேசன் விக்னேஸ்வரி அம்மையார் அவர்கள் மாலை அணிவித்து கௌரவிப்பார்.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, after hearing the water security and people participate to research, we move on to the nurturing the next generation, contemporary perspective on child health by eminent person, Professor Geethanjali. So it's my duty to propose this vote of introduction. So Lady Leelawathi Ramanathan Memorial Lecture also is an annual event which usually take place following the annual general convocation. This memorial lecture is established through endowment initiated by Saiva Mangir Sabai Association of Hindu Women. It's in Colombo, is a big school, Saiva Mangir. Funded by Sir Ponnambalam Ramanathan in 1924. It's about, he was departing. So Lady Leelawathi Ramanathan, originally from Australia. So you can see our iconic administrative building is Australian architecture. Even our Parameshwaran temple also is erected by her. Attracted by the theosophical movement in Australia, moved to Sri Lanka to quench her spiritual thirst. So she got married to Sir Ponnambalam Ramanathan, a high Hindu intellectual personality at the time. He was the mentor and the guru. She exemplified the ideas of women who embrace her husband's profound vision of knowledge and spirituality as her own. She was a devoted wife who respected all the cultures and tradition of her second homeland as her own motherland. She is none other than our Lady Leelawathi Ramanathan. Soon after the demise of Sir Ponnambalam Ramanathan in 1924, Lady Leelawathi Ramanathan followed the Hindu tradition of following all the local culture. She built Kurunji Andava temple in loving memory of her husband. Her contribution to Tamil-speaking community was significant and commendable. Her untiring efforts on publishing Sir Pon Ramanathan lectures and several books, including Ramayanas in English version, were marvelous. we express our gratitude to those who established this memorial lecture. Actually, Geethanjali will elaborate more, so I stop here. Today, the speaker of Lady Leelawathi Ramanathan Memorial Lecture 2026, Professor Geethanjali Satyadas, is an eminent lady and a famous researcher of our university. Geethanjali is a distinguished pediatrician, academic, and child health advocate whose career spans more than 2 decades of service, scholarship, and leadership. She was born in Badula and moved to Jaffna and received primary and secondary education in Chundukli Girls College, Jaffna. It's also a very eminent school, past 125 years of existence. She entered Faculty of Medicine, University of Jaffna, and was compelled to move to UK during her final year of MBBS due to disruption of the faculty in 1995, and completed a medical bachelor's degree from University of Aberdeen in the University in Scotland in 1997, the top of the Scotland. She obtained diploma in child health in 2005, MD pediatrics 2007 from Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo, MRCP CH UK in 2009, and postgraduate diploma in medical education in 2016, again in the Scotland University of Dundee in Scotland. She was trained in pediatrics at Royal Aberdeen Children's Hospital, United Kingdom in 2008 to 2010. She was awarded the Fellow of Sri Lankan College of Pediatrician in the year 2022. She joined the Faculty of Medicine, University of Jaffna in 2003 as a lecturer and promoted to the senior lecturer in 2010. Currently, she is the chair professor of pediatrics at the University of Jaffna. She also serves as the head of the department and honorary consultant pediatrician to Teaching Hospital Jaffna. She also the chairperson of the Board of Medical Sciences at the Faculty of Graduate Studies of the University of Jaffna. Professor Geethanjali Satyadas has authored several books, including chapters in textbooks, and also serves as the chief editor of the Jaffna Medical Journal. She has an extensive portfolio on research and the recipient of national research grants. She has delivered more than 50 guest lectures, published many articles on newspapers and scientific journals. She also has more than 50 journal articles and more than 100 abstracts with more than 400 citations. Professor Geethanjali Satya is a very active person at the community level, where she works very closely with the Northern Region Child Care and Probation Department and has contributed a lot to identifying child abuse cases and protecting and preventing child abuse in the region. She has also initiated and currently executing community reach programs for special needs children, especially for cerebral palsy and autism. She is also a senior trainer at national level, training pediatrician and other intensive care practitioners. She has initiated and executed a nutrition intervention program in the community called Project Amudasrabi. Her research interests are in the field of child nutrition, childhood body composition, obesity, and metabolic syndrome. Her life's work reflects an unwavering commitment to safeguarding childhood, strengthening medical education, and building healthier future for generation. So I have pleasure in inviting on behalf of the committee who founded the Lady Ramanathan Memorial Lecture to deliver the lecture titled Nurturing the Next Generation, Contemporary Perspective on Child Education. So again, it's a testimony for the community engagement of our university. Welcome, madam.
Thank you, sir, for the kind introduction. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Sri Satgunaraja, Dean, Faculty of Arts, former vice chancellors, the Dean Faculty of Medicine, professors, senior lecturers, colleagues, and my dear students. It's my privilege to deliver today the prestigious Lady Leelawathi Ramanathan Memorial Lecture. Lady Ramanathan was born Rosa Lillian Harrison in Victoria, Australia. She was educated at Dryburgh House School in Adelaide and later in Queen's College. Her interest in theosophy eventually drew her to Sri Lanka, where she met the distinguished statesman and scholar Punnambalam Ramanathan, then Solicitor General. They traveled together to London and then to New York and other parts of the United States to deliver a series of disclosures on the unity of faith. By this time, Harrison had adopted the name Rama Leelawathi, writing under the signature R. Leelawathi. She contributed a series of articles to prominent newspapers, including the Indian Mirror, the Hindu, and the Ceylon Independent. Following her marriage to Ramanathan in 1907, Lady Leelawathi Ramanathan largely withdrew from public prominence, though she remained deeply engaged in educational and cultural activities. In 1912, when Ramanathan founded Ramanathan College, she served for a period as its principal. A scholar proficient in Tamil and Sanskrit, she made significant contribution to indigenous education. In 1931, she published a concise English retelling of the Ramayana. In 1942, the University of Ceylon conferred upon her the honorary degree of Doctor of Laws in recognition of her service to education. She passed away in 1953 at the age of 80, leaving behind a legacy of scholarship, cultural advocacy, and dedication to education in Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, I have tried my best to pay respect to a wonderful human being, and let me walk you through some of the work that we did in this region regarding child health and the interference of factors that hinder the health of the future of the society. Children are soft beings of every hope we dare to hold. They carry wonder in their questions, courage in their small steps, and an honesty that reminds the world how to feel without fear. In their laughter lives a kind of magic that heals tired hearts, and in their tears a trust that someone will come to make things right. They teach us without trying that love can be simple, joy can be loud, and tomorrow is always worth living in. Today's world is changing rapidly due to advances in science and technology. In such a situation, creating a resilient and empowered generation is essential for the progress of society. This nurtured, strong generation is one that possesses knowledge, moral values, discipline, and a sense of responsibility. Such a generation will protect the environment, speak out for social justice, work for the welfare of fellow human beings, strive for the development of the nation. However, today we see that the environment needed to create such youth is being eroded, and the society closely built and protected by our ancestors is declining. This could be the long-term effects of a war-torn society. Long-term impacts on children growing up in high-risk environments can be in terms of psychological effects, reduced self-confidence, educational impact causing increased school dropouts, and parents forcing their children to work to support family livelihoods, impaired cognitive function, social exclusion and marginalization, normalization of violence and risky behavior. Some youth grow up perceiving violence as normal part of life. As a result, their behavior becomes harmful, such as habitual lying, substance abuse, reckless driving, high-risk sexual behavior, and more emotions and problems in difficult to resolve conflicts, and then high sexual risk of sexual behavior leading to infections. Preschool age is a period of rapid physical, motor, social, cognitive, and emotional development. During this time, children begin to form habits that are flexible and adaptable. Yet, these early patterns can have a lasting influence on lifelong behavior. Nurturing these children properly helps to overcome the long term impacts of high risk environment. Following the severe economic crisis of 2021 and the years of poor economic management and external shocks like COVID pandemic intensified the situation of debt. Amid rising unemployment and inflation, real household incomes fell, pushing poverty rates up to 10% between 2021 and 2022. Families struggling with high living costs often resort to coping strategies that are harmful in long term, such as reducing essential consumption, taking an excessive debt, limiting nutrient rich food intake, and withdrawing children from educational activities. These strategies disproportionately affect the child nutrition. The Sustainable Development Goals of 2030 prioritize the elimination of hunger, achievement of food security, improved nutrition, and promotion of sustainable agriculture. Progress towards these goals is monitored through 4 key nutritional indicators for children under 5: stunting, wasting, overweight, and anemia during early childhood. Poverty and malnutrition are deeply interconnected, creating a self reinforcing cycle. The root cause of poverty related malnutrition include lack of access to essential affordable food such as protein rich legumes, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. This food insecurity has profound consequences for physical and cognitive health. The most visible effects are stunting, wasting, and general nutrient deficiencies. Early childhood undernutrition also increases the risk of chronic conditions in adulthood, including heart disease, high blood pressure, and susceptibility to infections. Globally, from 2012 to 2020, 84% of the low birth weight infants were born in low income countries. The prevalence of stunting among children under 5 rose from 21% in 2012 to 26% in 2022. During the same period, wasting increased from 14 to 17%. However, to achieve stunting prevalence of 13.5 by 2030, the prevalence in 2022 should have reached 18.2. Although there has been strong progress, the predicted 2030 target is not likely to be achieved. To meet the 2030 target, wasting should be reduced to 3%, but it remains around 6%. These findings indicate the need to increase access to essential interventions for the prevention of malnutrition. To ensure the achievement of global targets, actions such as early detection, appropriate treatment, monitoring, and delivery of effective services for child malnutrition must be scaled up. According to studies conducted in Sri Lanka in 2020 among children aged 6 to 59 months, the prevalence of stunting, underweight, wasting, overweight, obesity were 13.7, 19.8, 22.7, and 1.7 respectively. Severe acute malnutrition was observed in 2.5% of the sample population, estate population having slightly higher prevalence. A cross-sectional study was conducted in all 13 MOH areas of the Jaffna district of Sri Lanka among 6 to 59 month children in 2023. Mean age was 2.09. Health indicators such as exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months and the completion of immunization completion was better in the rural setting when compared to urban setting. This table shows the distribution of various growth parameters and their z-scores for the population. Considering the various types of malnutrition, when compared to the pilot work on 4 MOH areas in 2022 and 13 MOH areas in 2023 showed a marked increase in all types of malnutrition. Severe acute malnutrition of 4.2% and moderate acute malnutrition of 11.2%. We also conducted a descriptive analytical study in school children, which also demonstrated the extent of the problem. This shows the distribution of the anthropometry in these children. The results show a stunting in nearly 11%, wasting in 30%, overweight in 6.4%, and obesity in 11%. And the prevalence was higher in young adolescents as well. Stunting and wasting significantly was high in Tenmarachi educational zone. This zone is well less densely populated, but unemployment was 10.7 when compared to 4.1 in other areas. Not only did we demonstrate the extent of malnutrition in school children, we were able to identify metabolic syndrome even in children young as 5 to 10 years who were overweight and obese. Also, metabolic dysfunction associated liver disease was seen in 26.7 and altered liver enzymes seen in nearly 21%. Prevalence of anemia was 25% in males and 30% in females. 60% of these anemias were iron deficient. Again, Tenmarachi zone was affected more. The extent of this triple burden was analyzed to identify a possible underlying cause. On further analysis, the socioeconomic status was assessed by education level, income, assets and ownership of land, house and vehicles. Nearly 60% of the population belonged to upper middle class. We also analyzed the extent of hunger scores and food insecurity in this population. Economic status showed a significantly strong inverse association for hunger scores with high 95% confident interval, indicating children from better economic backgrounds and lower odds of malnutrition. In addition, maternal education exerted most protective influence. When considering the household food insecurity, economic status, maternal education, and monthly income were significantly associated, indicating protective effects. Dietary diversity, wasting, and undernutrition showed significant positive associations. A range of these challenges continues to affect our population, posing significant risks to health and well-being of the future generation. While numerous policies, programs, and interventions have been implemented at the global level to address these issues, questions remain regarding the effectiveness in reaching the target populations, the fidelity of their implementation, and the rigor of impact assessment mechanisms used to evaluate the outcome and long-term effects. In addition to several short-term problems, one key issue consistent with Barker's hypothesis, undernutrition during critical window of fetal and early postnatal development induces permanent structural, physiological, and metabolic adaptations which increase the susceptibility to develop non-communicable disease later on in life. Not only does it cause problems on the cardiometabolic risk, it also affects the cognitive function, motor, and development of the child. This slide shows the interconnection of various factors. Anticipating these problems, the question of why did these upper middle class social families have an increased rate of malnutrition, high food insecurity, and lack of food diversity? We found out that lack of knowledge, home economics, poor food related behavior, poor skills in providing nutritious food, and child rearing practices were the key problems. This made us to design and conduct a community-led nutrition intervention led by a care group approach named Project Amudha Surabhi. This approach decentralized a key aspect of health service provision to grassroots levels, equipping the main carer with crucial competencies to positively impact their health. This creates an ownership of services. Feasibility study was done in Ariale, giving us very promising results. Components of the interventions are nutrition education and affordable recipe development and workshops on culinary skills. Hygiene and sanitation practices ensuring the WASH theory of the WHO. Positive parenting strategies, financial literacy and resource management, in addition to behavioral changing tactics. The pilot work done in Punerin area of the Kilinochchi district, stratified cluster sampling was done and the selected households participated in a structured training program. The training was conducted over 6 weeks, comprising a total of 12 sessions, each lasting 2 to 4 hours. 2 weekly household follow-up visits were conducted to assess and reinforce the adherence to recommended practices. Evaluations were done at baseline, 3 and 6 months post-intervention. Promising results were seen. Severe acute malnutrition dropped from 10.4 to 1.3. Moderate acute malnutrition from 10.4 to 7.1. Growth faltering fell from 60.4 to 27.9. Weight gain was observed. Severe wasting declined from 5.2 to 1.3. Stunting decreased from 25.3 to 20.8. Consumption of vitamin A rich vegetables, green leafy vegetables, eggs, and organ meat increased, whereas fried food, bakery items, and sweets decreased. Post-intervention household hunger and food insecurity improved at 6 months, following a drawback at 3 months, reflecting income loss during the Ditwa floods. It also demonstrated how natural disasters can hinder nutritional status. It also gave an awareness on how preparedness for natural disasters involves proactive planning, early warning systems, community awareness, and resource mobilization to reduce risk and enhance response capacity. In addition to nutrition, physical activity and play and sleep play a pivotal role in cognitive development of preschool children. The WHO recommends that children aged 3 and 4 years to have at least 180 minutes in variety of physical activities, of which at least 60 minutes to moderate to vigorous intensity. Sedentary for not more than 1 hour, and good quality sleep of 10 to 13 hours. Executive functions such as attention control, working memory, planning, and self-regulation require active engagement, problem solving, and real-world interactions to strengthen. When children spend long hours on screen, they often experience fragmented attention, overstimulation, and limited opportunities for physical play, which are crucial for cognitive growth. Over time, this imbalance can lead to difficulties in focusing, managing impulses, organizing tasks, and adapting to new challenges, ultimately affecting academic performance and social development. Emerging evidence suggests that well developed motor skills are positively associated with stronger executive functions in early childhood. Physically active play, particularly activities that require coordination, sequencing, and rule following, can stimulate brain networks involved in both motor control and cognitive regulation. During the preschool years, rapid brain development makes this a sensitive period for strengthening these interconnected domains. Supporting structured and unstructured movement opportunities may therefore promote not only physical competence but also attention, self regulation, and early academic readiness. When children spend long times on passive activities such as watching videos, they have fewer opportunities to practice balance, coordination, object manipulation, and hand exploration. Fine motor development may also be limited if screen interaction replaces activities such as drawing, building, and puzzle play. In addition, constant background noise of the TV and music prevents the brain from experiencing silence and teaches children to have shallow focus, restlessness, and shorter attention span. Executive functions can also be affected by the fast paced or highly stimulating digital content, may reduce the opportunities to practice self regulation, problem solving, and sustained focus. Overuse of digital media has been associated with difficulties in inhibitory control and attention in some studies. Considering these, we conducted a study to determine the factors associated with adherence of preschool children to WHO movement guidelines. Children were recruited from preschools in the northern province. A total of 224 children from all 5 districts were selected from 12 preschools. Anthropometric measurements were taken and activities regarding gross motor and dexterity of the hand functions were assessed. Executive functions such as inhibition and working memory were measured using the validated early years toolbox, which is a set of iPad games that were used to assess the working memory and to assess the inhibition. Key results. Mean daily screen time was 81.7 minutes. 82% reported spending 60 minutes or more on screen time, which is the WHO recommended screen time. Nearly 51.3% of the children get engaged in less than 180 minutes of daily physical activity. Regarding sleep, 84% of the children slept between 10 to 13 hours. Sadly, only 7.2% of the children met all 3 recommended movement behavior criteria according to the WHO. Go accuracy of 70% and no go accuracy of 65% with impulse control of 0.45 seconds indicated that most children can successfully execute a response while inhibiting impulses remaining more challenging, which is typical for this developmental age. Mean point score of 1.12 and number of trials of 3 suggest limited engagement and low task mastery, likely due to short attention span. Early use of digital screen leads to problematic use in later life and addiction. These can provoke online exploitation. Hence, we conducted a survey on 15 to 16-year-old school-going children of Jaffna district. Nomophobia, defined as the irrational fear or anxiety of being without a mobile phone, which is seen in 39% of the children and highest among grade 10 students. It was significantly more prevalent in female students. 40% of grade 10 to 13 years used the device for gaming. Boys were affected more. A study on 740 grade 10 students to assess the exploitation revealed exploitation was seen in 14% nearly. The risk was higher among students who had multiple social media accounts, used the internet outside their homes, had constant access, using real life profile photos, real names, and sharing relationship status were linked to high risk of cyber related violence. Nearly 85% were willing to report victimization, but only 2.6 knew all the reporting methods. Ladies and gentlemen, I have explained the importance of nutrition, physical activity, and the problems of screen time on early childhood development. Parents and preschool teachers play a pivotal role in overcoming some of these problems. Parenting tactics, role modeling by parents and teachers, along with educational reforms, will help nurture our children to become the future society that solves problems, creates, and nurtures the future. In terms of early brain development, positive early experiences, including responsive caregiving and rich language exposure, help build executive functions like self control and working memory, which are essential for academic success and everyday decision making. During this period, experiences strongly influence the formation of neural connection that support attention, memory, language, and problem solving. The two hemispheres of the brain, the right and the left, have their own functions but connected to each other. The right brain more intuitive and emotional, while the left brain is more logical, literal, and linguistic. In addition, the right brain is holistic, nonverbal, and sends signals that allow us to communicate through facial expression, eye contact, tone of voice, and gestures. Very young children are right hemisphere dominant, especially during the first 3 years of life. They haven't mastered the ability to use logic and words to express their feelings, and they use their lives in the current moment. For example, they will spend hours observing a butterfly, not caring one bit that they are late for preschool. The cerebrum, known as the upper brain, is responsible for reasoning, problem solving, empathy, self control, and decision making. In child rearing, this is the part that helps a child pause, think, and choose appropriate behavior. The lower brain manages basic survival responses such as fight, flight, or freeze. In children, this part activates quickly during tantrums, fear, or frustration. When a child throws a tantrum, they are overwhelmed and react, not reasoning. In these moments, logic does not work. Effective parenting focuses first on calming the lower brain through soothing tone, physical comfort, or quiet space before engaging the upper brain with discussion or teaching. Supporting children in moving from lower brain reactions to upper brain responses help them build emotional regulation over time. Elephants are often admired not just for their size and intelligence, but for their deeply nurturing approach to parenting. In herds of elephants, the mothers form strong bonds with their calves, guiding and protecting them for many years. Parenting is shared responsibility. Aunts, sisters, grandmothers help raise the young, creating a supportive system. Calves learn essential survival skills like finding water, recognizing danger, and communicating by closely observing their elders. This cooperative and compassionate style of care highlights how elephant families thrive through patience, protection, and powerful social connections. If we look at various types of parenting styles, authoritative parenting, parents balance love with discipline. The children develop responsibility, self confidence, and strong relationship. Authoritarian parenting, parents exercise strict control and expect obedience without question. Children raised in this environment often develop fear and low self esteem. Permissive parenting, parents give excessive freedom and few rules or limits. Children may grow up undisciplined, irresponsible, and struggle with boundaries in life. Neglectful parenting. Often children experience loneliness, lack trust, and face difficulties in social interactions. Helicopter parenting, which is what we see nowadays in this part of the country. Parents go to great lengths to protect their children from harm, disappointment, or failure. Though well intentional, such intense oversight shielding children from mistakes, constant controlling their world, or over involvement in conflicts can limit independence, hinder resilience, and obstruct healthy development. Let us have a look at some of the strategies of parenting. When a child is overwhelmed, the amygdala activates a stress response that temporarily limits access to the prefrontal cortex, making lectures and punishment ineffective. Supportive responses from the caregiver help calm the stress reaction, allowing the higher order thinking. Over time, repeated experiences of co-regulation strengthen neural connection between emotional and rational centers, fostering self-control, empathy, and resilience. By helping children name their feelings, reflect on experiences, and feel securely attached to adults, promotes emotional stability and social competence. For example, acknowledging a child's disappointment or anger before explaining why a certain behavior is unacceptable helps the child feel understood and more receptive. Another strategy is name it to tame it, encouraging adults to help children narrate overwhelming experience. Putting feelings into words activates the logical brain and reduces emotional intensity. Engage, don't enrage reminds caregivers not to demand reasoning when child is emotionally flooded. Instead, they should wait until the child is calm, ensuring that communication supports integration rather than escalating distress. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision making, empathy, and self control, requires intentional practice. The strategy use it or lose it emphasizes giving children regular opportunities to make choices, reflect on consequences, and consider others' perspectives. So these higher order skills become strong through repetition. Move it or lose it highlights the powerful connection between body and brain, noting that physical movement can help regulate overwhelming emotions by calming the nervous system and restoring balance. Use the remote of the mind encourages teaching children to revisit memorable memories in manageable ways, pausing, rewinding, fast forwarding like a movie so they can process fear or anxiety without becoming overwhelmed. Remember to remember by helping children revisit and discuss past experiences so events become coherent stories rather than confusing emotional fragments. Teaching children to let the clouds of emotion roll by, helping them understand that feelings are temporary states that can be noticed without being overwhelmed. Pay attention to their sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts, fostering internal awareness. The ability to understand one's own mental state and those of others strengthens empathy and emotional regulation. Ensure the importance of increasing shared joy deepens connection and resilience, and viewing conflict as an opportunity to teach empathy, responsibility, and collaborative problem solving rather than relying solely on punishment. Preschool education, sad state of affairs in this country. Only 39% of the preschool teachers have received at least a professional training. Education reforms are needed in preschools. These reforms should replace the previously fragmented system where preschools followed different syllabuses with varying standards and emphasizes holistic child development through play-based, child-centered learning rather than rote memorization. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by saying if we truly believe children are our future, then protecting, empowering, and nurturing them cannot be optional. It must be our unwavering commitment. When homes and schools unite to build not just educated minds, but safe, confident, and resilient individuals, we don't just shape successful students, we secure a stronger, safer tomorrow. Work that involves such gravity cannot be accomplished alone. A team of dedicated professionals are needed. My heartfelt gratitude goes to the little children, along with their parents who cooperated immensely to do all this work. The research team need commendation, especially the Center for Digital Epidemiology team at the Faculty of Medicine, research assistants working in all the projects, demonstrators of the Department of Pediatrics, staff of the Department of Pediatrics, International Medical Health Organization USA for funding Project Amudu Surabhi, Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Faculty of Arts Faculty Board for selecting me to deliver this ovation today, University of Jaffna for giving me this opportunity, and a big thank you for all of you who are staying here patiently listening to me. Thank you.
இன்றைய நாள் இடம்பெற்ற இரண்டு உரைகளும் எதிர்காலம் குறித்த அதீத விழிப்பை தருவதாக இருந்தது. ஒன்று இயற்கை வளம், ஒன்று நம் எதிர்கால தலைமுறை குறித்த இரண்டு பரப்புகளிலே அதீத விழிப்பை தருவதாக இருந்தது. ஒரு பெற்றோராக பேராசிரியர் கீதாஞ்சலியினுடைய உரையை கேட்கின்ற பொழுது சற்று அச்சமுணர்வும் நமக்குள்ளே அதிகமாக பரவியது. சொல்லிலும் செயல் பெரிது என்பது போல தன்னுடைய சுய ஆய்வுகளுக்கூடாக மிக நேர்த்தியாக இந்த உரையை வடிவமைத்தமைக்காக நன்றி சொல்கிறோம். இப்பொழுது இது நன்றி உரைக்கான நேரம். இந்த சம்பிரதாயபூர்வமாக நன்றி உரை வழங்கி வைப்பதற்காக கலைப்பிடாதிபதி கலாநிதி சண்முகநாதன் ஐயா அவர்களை அன்போடு அழைக்கின்றோம்.
Good evening to you all. So it's my pleasure on behalf of the Faculty of Arts and the institution as a whole. First of all, I would like to thank our Vice Chancellor for his fullest support, guidance and facilitation, and above all that for his introductory address on this occasion. And at the same time, I thank the registrar and the registrar, the Deputy Registrar Academic Publication and Deputy Registrar Faculty of Arts for their academic support to make this occasion very successful. Above all, that I would like to thank Emeritus Professor Narraja Sri Skandaraja, Swedish University of Agricultural Science, Sweden, for his innovative and scholarly address on the contemporary issues on water security, and his request for the university engagement and the role we played on the contemporary issues. I thank you, sir, personally. Then, that another address, Professor Kidanchali Satyadas, Chair Professor, Department of Pediatrics, Faculty of Medicine, University of Jaffna. That also very innovative at the same time, the research-based scholarly address on the contemporary issues that on child health. So I also thank her for her innovative address. I also thanks the former professor, former vice chancellors, former deans, and the lecturers, and the present deans of the faculties, and professors, senior professors, lecturers, heads of departments, and the students and the well-wishers being present there. So I also that have to thank them for making this occasion a great success. So finally, I would like to thank for those who I failed to thank. That also I thank them. Okay, thank you. And the VC media also I thank.